Okay, well, I guess we'll
get started. Thank you all for coming. I'm Gigi Barnhill. I'm board chair for the Amherst Historical Society, and it's a delight today to welcome Jim Thomas to the podium. Anyway, Jim comes to us after a 30-year long career of teaching math. He moved here to Amherst around 2001, I believe, and then spent another 15 years in the Amherst school system. So some of you may know him through that context. He's been a bottle collector since childhood. He's going to tell us how he got into that and give us, I guess, some of his stories, anecdotes about finding bottles. And then he's brought a wonderful array here. I mean, my gosh, how do you find one of these intact? Anyway. It's a delight to welcome Jim here, and over to you.
All right. Thank you, Gigi. Okay, so let's see a few things off the bat. There's John. John, grab it. There's another chair over there. Okay, so first of all, I want you to know that I think I'm going to go about 40 minutes. If you have to leave early, go ahead. It's not, I won't be offended. I understand it's lunch for some people. And I guess we'll just roll into it. Let's see the next slide. Okay, so I've been a bottle collector since age 10. And this is a shelf in my living room of bottles that I've found. Some of them are here today. I'm going to tell you how I got into that in a second. But just so you know, I have 50 years of bottle digging. I dig for bottles. You can also collect bottles in other ways. You can buy bottles. So bottle diggers are sort of this like side category of bottle collectors. And you know, because we got to go into the poison ivy and dig through the dirt. And a lot of the bottles we get are chipped or dirty or stained. And so we're like these weird guys over there. But because I've done it so long, I actually have some bottles that are considered cool even by the real antique guys. So next. All right, another shelf in my living room. I think, so you know what, I forgot something here. We got to take a time out. I wanted everybody to take a bottle, so we'll pass them out. And part of this was to have you not feel guilty about me saying, please keep the bottle if you'd like it, because I have hundreds and thousands actually of bottles. So take a bottle because it's part of the lesson on antique bottles. While Terry does that, I think I'll tell you how I got into bottle digging. I was 10 years old. I grew up on Stockbridge Bowl out in Stockbridge. I was a Stockbridge kid. You guys might know that as the Lake Tanglewood is on. And I was fishing. And I caught the biggest fish of my life. I mean, this thing almost broke my pole, and I reeled it in, and it was this. Snagged it by the wire stopper. All right, now 10 years old, I was dumb as a rock. But when I read this, it says 1895 Pittsfield Rice Brothers beer. So I was like, 1895, like even a 10-year-old was like, that's old. That's probably like older than my mother even. So I brought it home, and my mom thought it was really cool. And she put it up in the kitchen, and sometime a little bit later, there was people came over to the house, and one of them happened to be an older guy who was part of the Berkshire Antique Bottle Association. It was a bottle club, and he told me that it was a really cool bottle, and he told me all about, you know, the antique bottle thing. So it was about the 70s when this happened, and antique bottles took off. There was a splurge, and everybody started finding dumps and getting interested in bottles. Bottle clubs were formed, and the one out in the Berkshires was the first one in all of New England. And they had these bottle shows and everything going on. So he told me that I ought to go back to where I found this and see if there were more. And so I did. I went out with my little snorkel and fins and swam out there. It was a part of Stockbridge Bowl where in the 30s they built a dam and raised the whole lake about 4 or 5 feet. So this was a part that was in 4 or 5 feet of water that used to be the edge of the swamp. And there was a dump under there. And the funniest thing was the bluegills, if anyone knows anything about fish, they make nests by fanning these circles out with their tails, and they would, I swam over it, and there's a bottle in every one. I think they liked the shininess or something to scare away predators. And for actually years to come, I'd go down there every spring and go swim around and get more bottles. So I had all these bottles, and then I packed some up and went to the bottle show and, found out about bottles and just stuck with it my whole life. So I've been digging like crazy since I was a kid. All right, next.
Oh, my
Down in my
gosh.
basement, we have the bottle museum. So I have the ones up top are the ones that are worth something. The ones down at the bottom, I mean, some of them are still worth something. But what happened to me is I was a kid digging stuff from the 1800s and thinking about way in the future it would be in the 2000s, and I was like, this is going to be really cool to have all these bottles from the 1800s. So I kept everything I dug. So now I'm like, why did I ever keep this? It's a stupid, clear, dirty bottle, but it's still from the 1800s. Next. Right, so there's the whiskeys up top and beer bottles here and, endless stuff. So again, I don't want you to feel bad. I'd love it if you keep this bottle and take some more later. All right, Terry, go ahead. Panoramic of the Bottle Museum. Next.
Holy mackerel. You better not.
Yeah, welcome to come over. Okay, so this is a picture of pocket flasks. They're all around 1880s. They're cool, warranted flasks, honest measure, full measure. The reason I'm showing you this picture is because I was like, one day I was starting to thin out the bottles. I'm like, someday I gotta leave this collection to one of my kids or grandkids, and I gotta. So I was saying, I bet you I have like 10 of these things. I'm gonna just get it down to 3. So I went through the whole collection, pulled them all out. I think that's the next picture. Right. Those are the 75 flasks that I have. So, not even washed yet, most of those. All right, anyway, next please.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a rare, you don't find them outside with the labels on it. So once in a while I get bottles in other places. That came out of the wall of a house that I was doing demo. Somebody stuck it in a hole when they wanted to get rid of it. So that's kind of cool. Next. Oh, there's a bottle we already spoke about, the first bottle.
That's great.
Okay, so now this is what I want to talk about, what makes a bottle old, how do you know it's old. My real goal today is to maybe catch someone's interest in bottles, or at least have you be aware of what's cool about them. So I'm going to try and show you how you know they're old, and then all the different types, and what makes a bottle valuable. Maybe you'll know a little bit about, if you have something at home. So the bottle you have, if you got one, I want you to. Okay, so these are called blown-in mold bottles. There was a 2-piece mold, and the glass blower would get the glass in his pipe there and blow into the mold, and it would form the bottle, and it would leave a seam because it was the 2-piece mold. And then he would take it apart and hand form the top and put a lip on it. So if you have a bottle right now, if you look at that, try and follow the seam, and you ought to see that it fades out, or else I didn't give you an old bottle.
Interesting.
So it happened to be 1900 that a guy named Owens, later the company became Owens Corning, who invented the automatic bottling machine. The automatic bottling machine could just take that mold and make the whole bottle. So if you look at a new bottle, the seam goes all the way through. I have a Coke bottle up here somewhere if you want to look later, but the seam would go all the way up through. So that's the first thing when you're looking at old bottles. Now there's a couple, this free-blown, really old bottles have no seam. They're free-blown, and then there's some special like wine bottles where they take it and turn it after to rub the seam out because they didn't want to see it. So, but by and large, that's how you know you're looking at an old bottle. And then, next please. Okay, there's just a picture of a seam going all the way through the lip. That's a newer canning jar. Next. Another feature of bottles that's cool is bubbles. Bubbles in the glass. And nowadays, if there's a bubble in the glass, they reject the bottle because it could possibly be a pocket where germs could collect or whatever. As soon as the automatic bottling machine stopped, there was no more bubbles. Next. So this is called a blob top. And blob top bottles are where it just shows that they stuck that on as a blob of glass. and formed it by hand. And you can even see the glass is kind of dripping down. So this has got really good bubbles in it. You can't see them so well. And the further down that the seam stops, the older the bottle. So this one, the seam's way down on the shoulder. Another feature of old bottles. A couple more blob tops. And then there's a little fancier one, you know, this was for a chemist in a drugstore, so they wanted it to look good. So they spun it and worked on the lip more. But that's still, the seam would have stopped, that's still a good old bottle. Okay, so these are some medicines. I think that's just showing, you know, just the look of an old bottle. Like I can just, you know, I find a piece of glass an inch big and I can tell you, you know, if this was old or not, because it has that look, all these little tiny bubbles and imperfections. These are 8-sided bottles, so that's a cool thing too, shape, something that makes it desirable. Like if you remember the pictures of my bottle museum, it was all kind of clear, rectangular, stupid bottles. You know, this is what makes a bottle good. But they're still from 1800s, so I think they're cool. Next. Top of a wine bottle. This is a style, this little ring that they built around it. It was a cork bottle. Okay, and then there's an interesting bottle. It's a screw top. So screw tops normally are it's not old, but this one, these are hand applied threads, and this is a ground top. It's like sandpaper. I think I have. Yeah, if you want to look at this later, if you feel the top, it's rough. So if you were at a flea market or something, you know what's good is salt shakers too. You can tell the old salt shakers are ground tops. You rub your finger around it, and it feels like it was sanded. It looks rough. So that's still an 1800s blown bottle. Cool bubble. Okay, the other thing. Well, this shows two things. Embossing is really cool when there's letters that were carved into the mold, and you know that makes a bottle. Like some of these bottles, it's all about is the really cool embossing. You know, like big thick writing on a medicine bottle. But the other thing that bottle shows is what's called the Riddle Marks. And everyone used to say that the mold was made out of wood, and they whittled it in wood. And then, right, they're going to put like 14,000 degree molten glass in that, right? So what it really is the first bottle of the day blown in that mold when the mold is cold. And there's condensation that happens before the bottle. So the first few bottles come out whittled like that. And it's considered a desirable feature. It's cool. If you look at the whole bottle in the light, I got a couple up here. We'll put the lights on better later, and you'll be welcome to come up and look at these. Next. Color. I'm sure your eye catches the colorful ones up here. So glass, natural colored glass is aqua. This is whatever ingredients they use, sand and lightning and earthworms, silica. It comes out aqua. In order to make it clear, that's a little bit more of a process. And once in a while, you'll see them where they start to get a little bit purplish. This one has it. I don't know if you can see it from there, but the sunlight affects old glass and turns it purple. You can do it with black lights also, which is cheating. But anyway, color is a desirable feature, and it took different chemicals, like this is cobalt, to make it blue, and I forget what amber is. But that's a cool thing about bottles, if you find colors. All right, really old bottles have a pontil mark on them. So out of my thousands of bottles, I might have 25 of these. And in fact, that bottle right there came in here today and didn't survive the trip. It's a bummer, but you know, I have a lot of bottles, but it was pretty delicate, but I might even just show it to you anyway, because this was a free blown, this was a really old bottle. So pontil marks, yeah, it's all right, but see I'm going to drop glass over. We'll leave it at it. So the pontil mark is when they made this on a rod called a pontil rod, and they blew it on the end of the rod and then snapped it off. and it literally leaves that mark. And so when we're digging and we, you know, in an old dump, and there might be panel bottles, we find a bottle, you rub the dirt off the bottom and you hope your finger comes up bloody, because that means you got a good panel bottle. So, which reminds me, by the way, I was going to tell you a test, another way to tell a good old bottle. If you take a bottle you think you want to know if it's old, hold it 4 feet off a hard surface and drop it. If it broke, it was a good old bottle. Because a regular new bottle just bounced. All right, and then if they really didn't want the customer or whoever's getting the bottle to cut their finger on the bottom, they ground it out with graphite, and that's called a graphite panel. So we're talking pre-1860 on those bottles. So that's, you know, I haven't found that many dumps that have bottles that old, but I have some. Nope, that's not it. It's up here somewhere. Oh, this one. This came from over near the Quabbin a long time ago, years ago. That's a graphite panel. All right, okay. So this is a short 6-minute video of a whole bunch of things. It's, people are always like, how do you find dumps? Well, you look at the old maps and you see where the old houses were in 1800s, and you go over to that area and you start thinking about, if I lived here, where would I dump my stuff? And it's usually out back behind a swamp, or, I mean, I've been everywhere for dumps. I found a dump on the top of Mount Chicora in the White Mountains. On the very top, there's a little cabin up there. Used to be a hotel in the 1800s, and when you walk out of it, there's a little area of bushes, like 20 feet circular. You got to go around either side of it. And for some reason, I went in the middle of it and kicked up a 1882 perfume bottle, and I sat there digging around. I've been underwater for dumps. I've dove in the Bronx. I've dug out old outhouses. The bottles are everywhere. But this is a video of a day that we went out to look for a dump. I knew it was going to be a good area, so I made the video, and then we found a dump. And it was one of the best ones I've ever found. So it shows digging bottles up and kind of see what it's like. All right, let that roll.
Let's hope it works.
Okay, here I am at my dig for the day. You can see I had to go about 3 feet down in just dirt before I hit ash. Haven't got any bottles yet, but we know they're here. Alright, I'm about 4 feet down. I got my first 2 bottles showing. We're going to dig them out. That one, green one, looks sweet. Clear one up here, a little less interesting, but let's see what it is. Okay, there's what that green bottle was, a nice old aqua whiskey. I'm working 7 feet down now. That black layer is looking good. That's very old. I'm starting to hit old shards. I bet something happens soon. Here comes an interesting looking amber or dark green, maybe olive bottle. Let's see what it is. Alright, it's a very nice 3-piece mold olive whiskey bottle. Cool. Okay, done with this hole. The whole top collapsed. Would have to dig all that out to get back into the bottle layer. So let's see, here's the total score of things I'll probably keep. A couple nice whiskeys there. Nice Jamaican ginger medicine, a blue inkwell. Another big whiskey, medicine, an insulator, a couple flasks. And you know, not bad. I'm gonna move to another hole. Okay, we moved to a new site. This isn't quite as deep. I only gotta go about 4 feet down. I have just had a little cave in. Whoa, look at that. Couldn't have even planned that. So look what we got. A bottle just jumped out for me. Looks like a ketchup. I got something hiding in there. Something hiding up in there. Let's see what we got here. A nice kind of green. Pull it straight out. It's really wedged in there. There we go. Nice little aqua medicine. Turns out to be a nice little Davis vegetable painkiller. Painkiller bottle. That's awesome. Okay, I finally reached 9 feet deep on this hole. I wasn't finding too much down there, but I started caving in the sides, which is where you get a lot. So here's where I'm at so far. in the last 15 minutes. Got this cool kind of porcelain boot. If it wasn't busted, that'd be awesome. Little pumpkin flask there. Insulator. So I still got this whole other side to cave in and see what we get. Alright, there's a mystery porcelain item here. No clue what that could be. If that's a pottery, we freaking do careful of that. If there's a neck sticking up on that. Okay. What have we got here?
It's broken.
Is it?
Yep. Still pretty damn cool.
Huh. Well, whatever that was, it's busted, but there's a really nice bottle next to it. What did that say on it?
Schlatterbeck and Foss Company, Portland, Maine.
Nice. Okay, we're celebrating a fairly good dig going in the first hour here. I don't know if we can zoom in on some of these, but we got a Hicks for all headaches, a Siffle Naples, and a Murdoch's Liquid Food Boston Mass 16-sided bottle, a Duffy's Malt Whiskey, an Oriental Cream. Doing well. A little doll head, and a pot, and a dish, and those new bottles. We didn't just dig those.
Ice cold, mass rising.
Okay, we got something interesting coming up here. Square green bottle. I'm about 5 feet, 6 feet down here. Hit a couple nice bottles today already. Buddy Mike digging it out here. He's got to get through some metal. You want to be careful not to scratch the bottle with the rake. That would devalue it if it was a good bottle. I mean, I can tell this isn't an incredible bottle, but anything that's square based and aqua should be interesting. Okay, broke it loose. Go ahead, pull that out. Let's see what we got here.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
All right, nice case gin type bottle here. That's a cool shape.
Bottom says Walkers.
Walkers. I would have thought it might have said Gordon's Dry Gin, but Walkers. All right.
Whiskey.
Whiskey. Okay, I got one coming up at about the 6 foot level. Mike's over here. Look how deep he is. He's like 8 feet down there. I mean, he's digging away. He's got some action here. Let's see.
I might need the green, that green, like a whiskey bottle that we've been looking at. Found shards of it.
All right, we got a couple things coming up here. Let's see what we got. All right, that's ready to come out.
Oh, yeah, man. Ember.
Yeah, let's pull that in the sun. Well, I didn't get it in the sun right, but there we go. Look at the color in that. Wow, that's a sweet, sweet bottle. Great color. All right, it's the end of that hole. Dug in there for about 6 hours. Barely can get out. We got those bottles. Stuff we're not going to keep, stuff we're going to keep. Wow.
I'm going to go through types of bottles. So, you know, a lot of collectors just collect type of bottles. I collect them all because I'm a digger. I take whatever I get. But if you go, so there's bottle clubs. There's a big bottle club in Enfield, Connecticut. There's a big one in Keene, New Hampshire. And a lot of those people would be, you know, they collect milk bottles or ink bottles or beer bottles. Or they focus it a little bit. But they're not diggers. So I have everything. So beer bottles are one type. This one here is kind of a rare, it's yellow beer bottle. It's, I gotta put my glasses on. What was cool about beer bottles is that back then every town had its own, right? This is a Pittsfield, Mass. Johnson & Sons Brewery, Pittsfield, Mass. And it's yellow, which is cool. And the back says this bottle not to be sold, so don't even make me an offer. I think that's their version of no deposit, no return or something. You had to return it. I don't know for sure. But every town had their own little microbreweries. Now, of course, the last 20 years we've started that again. But there's tons of beer bottles from all over the place. This Rice Brothers one was another Pittsfield one. Next. Okay, those are actually soda bottles. State Line is a defunct town over near West Stockbridge, Mass. It's called Austerlitz now, I think. Food jars. So food jars, this is one, they're wide mouth bottles, and they had all kinds of stuff. This was pickled whatever. They pickled stuff in something spicy usually. This is what the color and shape would tell you, like pepper sauce, like this. That's a pepper sauce bottle. It's considered cool because of the shape. I've dug about 5 or 6 of these over the years. Yeah, that's cool. All right, those are more just, again, these are like the ones I say are kind of stupid, boring bottles, but they're food. I've been actually bringing bottles back to dumps and reburying them. All the clear ones. I literally brought, Terry was up in New Hampshire for a while and found a great dump up there. And I'd just go up with 100 bottles in my backpack and dig a hole. I was like digging 4 feet deep. And just put a bunch of these back in it. Okay, Horlicks malted milk, Racine, Wisconsin. So if it cleans up nice and it has really nice embossing and some color, that's what makes a nice bottle. That's the ground top I was telling you about. So it's an older threaded bottle. It had a tin lid threaded on it with a porcelain insert. That's a cool bottle. Whiskey bottles. I brought one. This is called the Ladies' Leg whiskey. So that's kind of a neat one. And a lot of whiskeys, they say cool stuff, and they'll say where they're from. And, these are, just they come in different colors. I have like 100 of them. Next. Okay, case gins. So somebody, probably a mathematician, figured out that round bottles put in a case, you got a lot of empty space in there that doesn't hold liquid. So they came up with squarish bottles. Case gin, it always looks like something Egyptian to me. These are pretty old. This is like 1870 and cool to find. I've only got like 4 of them. Next. Those are wine bottles. That one there with all the stuff on it is here. It's kind of cool. It's like a grapevine. They embossed on it. It's really a lot of work.
Beautiful.
That's a cool bottle. Bottles' values are by a lot of things. One of them is rarity, so this one is semi-valuable because it's not. So what am I talking about? Like $100 for this bottle. Bottle prices are crazy right now. Terry and I went up to the Keene. They have a bottle show every Columbus Day, Saturday. It's a really fun. I think I have a slide of it at the end here. They have an antique bottle show and sale, and all these dealers come from all over. Like I got a buddy from Baltimore comes up, and the bottle prices this year were phenomenal. We wanted to. I don't really buy bottles, but there's a couple that you don't find. Poison bottles, which we're going to see in a minute. I like to look for good poison. I buy anything that says Thomas on it. My name. There's a Thomas ginger beer that we found. So. There was a cool soda bottle there we're going to come to later, but it was one of these types with the marble in it. I'll talk about that in a minute, but I was like, all right, this would be like $40. What was it, remember? It was like $165 or something, and they were selling, the dealers were selling bottles like crazy. There was $1,000 bottles going, so it's a really healthy hobby within the group. Next. Okay, these are cool because these are like some wealthy person puts up their own wine and hires someone to make their bottle and then sticks their seal on it. So that's a molten glass, just seal stuck on it. I hope I brought one of those. I don't really see it, but there's, I guess I have a couple of them. anyway, that's a really cool bottle because they're very unique, very rare. And this is also an example. I was telling you, they spun the bottle so there's no seam in it. So if you were to find this and think it wasn't old because you don't see the seam, you'd be incorrect on that. Yeah, close up of the. I don't know if that one's Japanese or anything. Does anyone know that? Tokauer? I don't know. All right, medicine bottles. Medicine bottles are probably the most popular collector's items. I think they're mine too. I particularly like this size. These are well, there's one over here. Well, those are all just a little bigger than this one, but I like these large rectangular medicines. They always say some cool stuff on it. English and plasterum. There's all kinds of work, and that bottle's Pontal, so that's like an 1840 bottle. That's a really cool bottle, and nobody's ever heard of it. So the best thing you want, is to look it up in the book and have it not be there, or go to the bottle show and have the dealers like, wow, I've never seen this before. I have a bottle here that I found when I was young. I was hired to paint a house. I was like 15. I was up on a ladder. There was a river running by it. I looked down in the river. Of course, I already was a bottle collector. Then I saw a bottle in the water. And it wasn't this one, but I went down there and it was an old bottle. And so then I went and started digging in the middle of the river, standing in knee-deep water, digging away with a hoe, and bottles would come up. And I got this one. And I knew this was a really good bottle. It's emerald green. It's paneled. It's like an 1830. It's in mint condition, and it's got this drapery effect on it. So it's called the Drape Ink. And I brought it to the bottle show. And I've never really, I've only sold one bottle, and it was because a guy gave me $100 for it. It was only worth like 40, and it was one of Terry's favorite bottles, and I've never heard of, the end of it. Like, I don't really sell bottles. Of course, on the other side of it, she's always like, we could have a new couch if you did. So, but I don't really sell bottles. But this one, I wanted $10 really bad. I wanted a pitchback, those things you throw the baseball to and the ball bounces back, and it was like $10. I mean, this is back in the 70s. Like, bottles were all selling for like 75 cents or $1.50 at the show. So I knew this was good. I wanted to see if I could get $10 for it. That's what the pitchback cost. I go up to a dealer and I show it to him. I go, how much will you give me for this bottle? And he said, I'll give you $50.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, you'd think I'd be like, yeah, okay, but I was like, $50. I was like, I think I should talk to my mom about it first. And I just kept it. This bottle's worth $5,000.
Oh, good heavens.
Yeah, and I have this people who collect only inks. It's the only one known. There's 4 others that are known in blue, and this is the only one known in emerald green. And there's ink collectors lined up to send me that check. So of course I can't do it because this is what puts me on the map. When I go to bottle shows, they're all like, "Hey, do you still got that ink?" I'm like, yeah.
Wow.
Back into the vault. Anyway, so medicine bottles. So all right, so I wanted to tell you some stuff about some of these medicines. The doctors were all quacks back then, right? They didn't have any real degrees. They just put their name. Here's a bottle. It's called Warner Safe Cure. You should take a look at this one later. There's a huge picture of a safe on it. This is a guy who ran a safe business. He made safes, and he wasn't getting enough business. So he's like, all right, you know what I can do is make a medicine. And he made this Warner Safe Cure. It was like 80% alcohol and 20% cherry flavoring. And it's said to be, I don't want to be quoted on this, but I've heard a couple times it was the first product in America to make $1 million. So if that's true or not, I know it's close to true. This was a really popular bottle. And, he just switched his company. So some of these bottles, the things that they cure are really interesting. So these bottles are all up here. I'm just going to read to you a few of them. This is one I like because it's called Thomas's Electric Oil. The greatest household remedy for pain, a cure for painful diseases. All right, that's nothing. Let's get into an interesting one here. Swain's Panacea. So this, All right, this big guy here, Panacea.
Yeah.
For the cure of scrofula, again, you'll have to come up and look at these. I'm not going to be able to. For the cure of scrofula, rheumatism, ulcerous sores, white swelling, diseases of the skin, general debility, and all diseases arising from impurity of the blood. It's primarily a syrup of sarsaparilla. It tasted good, and so it was popular. But that cured a lot. But we can still do better than that. Let's see. Clark's Peruvian syrup. This guy here. 1850 is when this product came out. Protected solution of protoxide of iron. That's what it was made out of. For the cure of dyspepsia, affections of the liver, dropsy, neurologica, bronchitis, consumptive tendencies, boils, scurvy, cutaneous complaints, general debility, and all diseases which require a tonic. So I have a book on medicines over there, which is where I get this. They can, people research this. All right, this big guy here, Doc Townsend's. This is a bottle that I dug, and if you look closely, there's a little, I nicked it. Like this would have been like a $300 bottle, but I dinged it with my fork digging. I wish you could have seen that video. But anyway, to me, it's just as good. It displays fine. That's a really old bottle. It's like 1840s or 50s. Could be anywhere in there. The product came out in 1839. The wonder and blessing of the age. The most extraordinary medicine in the world. This extract is put up in quart bottles and is 6 times cheaper, pleasanter, and warranted superior to any other sold. It cures vomiting, purging, sickening, or debilitating the patient, or without sickening or debilitating the patient. And then there's an added on the end of it. It goes rascality and deception. There is a sarsaparilla called Dr. Jacob Townsend's. This is a notorious falsehood. None genuine unless signed SP Townsend. That happens all the time in old bottles. There's like the Atwitch Jonas, and then somebody else with different initials tries to jump on. Actually, there were no rules until about 1906 when the FDA was formed. I don't think it was called that yet, but Congress passed an act controlling medicine, and I have a bottle here. Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Cough Syrup. This is Panel. This is a really old product. It started in the 1830s. It was for babies, and unfortunately it was killing babies. It was like 75% alcohol and had a bunch of other stuff, and it was just made to try and taste good. And I don't have its advertisement, but it was to cure babies of all kinds of stuff. And so it's the one that they finally put some controls on something over this product. A couple more medicines here. Let's see. Kickapoo oil.
Oh, yeah.
You've heard of that?
Yep.
Yep. Relief from aches and pains. That's this guy. Cool shape. Sanford's Liver Invigorator. 1840. For bilious attacks, headache, or giddiness. So I don't know where my Sanford's one. It's up here somewhere. Find it later. All right, I got 2 more of these. Wistar's Balsam from 1841. That's this guy. The great remedy for consumption of the lungs, nature's own prescription. So I don't know if that means they're going out and squeezing it out of a tree or something. Nature's own prescription. And finally, Atwood's Jaundice Bitters. So this bottle was 25% alcohol. It was an effective cure for jaundice, headache, dyspepsia, worms, dizziness, loss of appetite, darting pains, colds, and fevers. It cleanses the blood from humors and moistens the skin. It's also good for liver complaints, strangery, dropsy, croup, and it's PHTHICIC.
Pistachios.
Yeah. you can come up and look at these later. So that's medicines, a great subgroup to collect and explore. Yeah, so that's some of the ones. So this is whittled, this bottle. That was one of those ones I was talking about. Makes it really look cool. And that's the graphite panel on the bottom of that bottle. That's an 1850-ish bottle. All right, poisons are another section. So I've dug some poisons and I've bought some poisons. These are hard to find. Poisons are cool because they always made them really colorful and bumpy. And then some of them, can anyone tell what shape that one is? I got it over here. Let's see, wait.
Shape of a coffin.
It's the shape of a coffin, yeah. So they really wanted you to not mistake it. I swear there's some bottles I didn't unpack. They wanted you to be able to tell. So, oh yeah, here it is. Yeah, these are poisons. So this guy's really bumpy. So if you grab it at night, and this guy's really bumpy and nice and colorful, and this is the coffin-shaped bottle.
Oh my gosh, it's tiny.
So they're kind of a cool collector item. So like I dug this one. I bought those two at a show. It's kind of hard. I dug this one. I dug this one actually. That's a cool one. Next. Yeah, there we go. That's a bigger coffin one I have at home. Neat color. Inks. All right, so inks are probably second to medicines for popular. All right, this is a master ink. It's cobalt blue. This is, you'd go buy your ink. It's got the pour spout so you can refill your ink well. I've dug these also in the full quart. This is a half quart. So different types. So inks are cool because there's so many types and colors. This is a boat ink. This is about 1880. This is an English ink. I actually did go to England and get a few bottles. So the thing with England is, well, actually, and I should say the automatic bottle machine, when I was telling you, it came in 1900, didn't mean that the next day everybody had that, right? So you can still find bottles, like I like to say my collection's all from the 1800s. Mostly is, and I'm usually know from the dump I'm in with all the stuff, what age I'm in. But some of those bottles with the seam that stops could go all the way to 1910. By now, we're assured that they're 100 years old. In England, it took a little longer, so I'm not positive the age of this, but it is, the seam stops, it's an old inkwell. Blue, cobalt blue, typical round inkwell. This was Carter's ink. That was a really popular. Another little English ink. That's called the turtle ink.
That's sweet.
That's a nice old one. I haven't cleaned it. See, so this bottle, if you really see it, is kind of hazy.
Yeah.
So being in the ground somewhere where like acetic acid got to it, started eating away at the glass, you can like turn it. You can put it in machines where you turn it with copper chips and try and work that out. And I could clean it up someday. There's a clone ink and it's yellow, so that makes it
Special.
a different color. It said, I think it says Carter's ink, 1897 on it, on the bottom. There's a really good one because of several reasons. Shape, emerald green color, and pommelled. This is a 1835-ish ink. So this guy's worth, I don't know, $400, something in that department. It's a really, really nice bottle. Came out of that same river as the other really good ink. That was okay, here's this. I don't know if I told you I'm a hockey player. One of my hockey buddies is here. I was digging in the hole, and I was several feet down, covered with dirt and mud. And there's a lot of rocks in the hole. I was throwing rocks out, looking for bottles. And there's this other clump, and it feels like a rock, and I have it right here. And then I'm like, this feels like a hockey puck. It's the only reason I took a second look at it, and I cleared off, and it's this. This is a porcelain ink from the 1830s. Now, I know I have a buddy who's a porcelain ink specialist and collector. He would have given me $800 for it. And that was back when I found it. It's got to be worth way more than that now. You see the two holes for the pen. So I'm glad I didn't throw it. All right, next slide. Inks, go ahead, X, we saw that. Bitters bottles, anyone heard of bitters bottles? You know what? There's a disguise selling alcohol as medicine. So a lot of them are 80%. You got so this one kind of cracks me up. It's Hofstadter's stomach bitters, like it was supposed to cure your stomach problems. I mean, I'm sure it caused them. It was so much alcohol. So that's a whole nother collector thing. If the bottle says bitters on it, it's a cool bottle. That's a 1860 Plantation Bitters. It's a cool bottle. It's also called a log cabin bitters because the whole bottle looks like a log cabin. I don't think I brought it. That one, I dug that one up. Usually you don't find something that good digging, but that was cool. Canning jars.
Jeez.
Now those are the old canning jars. You know, you can find ball canning jars still today, but so they have round tops and seam doesn't go up, and there are all kinds of different names that you haven't heard of. And I could have sworn I brought a canning jar. I don't know. I must have left the box in the car, but anyway, what makes a canning jar valuable is color and rarity. I think the next slide is, there we go. There's some good ones because of the colors. Off green, almost yellow. That one has a misprint on it, makes it worth something. That's a teal. But that's what makes a candy jar. And again, if you're trying to age it, look for that ground top on it, the rough top. Block top sodas, these are all called Hutchinsons. It's a certain type. One of the big things with bottles was figuring out how to seal in carbonated drinks, right? They had all this pressure all of a sudden. And what keeps it there? If you just put a cork in it, the cork dries out and you lose it all. So this is one where is the next one of these two? Yeah, they had this thing with a cork on it, and you could pull it up in tight, and then the pressure is working with you because it's pushing up on it. So that whole thing was called a Cod Stopper, and those bottles were only there in the 1860s because then they moved on to better moves. You could trace the whole history of bottles through the tops. Like this is one where this thing went on and you clamped it down with that. That was the next thing after the Cod Stoppers. Okay, I put this in here because, I'm a snob about everyone's like, oh, you get old Coke bottles, or people are always telling me where there's dumps, and they're always a 1920, bunch of junk dump. But the one cool thing about Coke bottles is the older ones always have the name of the city they were made on the bottom. So that's kind of fun if you did want to collect Coke bottles. But if you look at that, the seam goes all the way up. So wouldn't have come home with me from the dump. I got enough bottles. That's kind of cool. Berkey Soda from the Berkshires, 1930s or something. Somebody told me about that. I don't remember. Okay, so someone gave me this bottle. They came home from Japan. And they're like, hey, you like bottles? Look at this, what they invented in Japan. It's got the marble in it here, and they're telling me all about it. And I'm like, oh, invented in Japan recently? Here, this is the 1860 version, invented in the US. So this is about this whole business of trying to seal in the bottle, right? So inside the lip, there was a little cork ring in there, which is right away now. And then these two pinches are there because it hung in a rack. So the marble was on the seal, and the pressure's pushing the marble down, and they keep it this way, and it would stay sealed. Now, how do you get the stuff out? These little pinches right here, see the marble down or the marble catches, and you can pour. Pretty elaborate way, right? So these also were done by the mid-1870s. What's that?
Did you dig that one?
Oh yeah, I dug everything here except for that poison. Yeah. Yes, I did. All right, how are we doing here? Getting to the end. Go ahead. That's the marble. That's the pinch. Pottery. So pottery's always special. I have like 25 pieces of pottery, right? So there's the ratio. Like here's a really nice old specimen. If it has blue ink, it's usually really good. This has got a double X on it. I found this not in a dump, but stuck in a hole in a stone wall. I was just hiking way out in the woods in Alfred, Mass. Just found it. There's a nice 1880s piece. A lot of times you dig it with the handle broken off. I would Terry up in New Hampshire. I found a dump. I was driving by last fall and saw a sign that said, "Here stood the Forest Hills Hotel, burnt down in 1888 or something." And I was like, oh, it's got to be a dump behind that. And I went around. Within 15 minutes, I found the dump. And a miracle, nobody had ever dug it. So I spent like, I don't know, 6 days up there digging. And will you see what I got out of that? This thing, I mean, you never dig anything big because they're always, busted. This thing it's got a hole in it. I say it's a bullet hole, but I brought it to a pottery expert. I wanted to find out about repairing that hole, and he said, don't. He said, that's character in the bottle. It's worth just as much as it is historical piece. Who would throw this out? Maybe because of the hole. I don't know. But that was fun. All right. Pottery. That's a really old piece. That's one. It's about 1780, and it's known by the glaze and the something with the shoulder being wider than the base. Again, I have a pottery expert guy out in Lenox, Charlie Flint. He's a big antique dealer out there. He tells me about these. That one there is, that's the oldest thing I ever dug. It's 1680. That piece is from the Albany, New York area. I brought it into a museum. They knew all about it. It's called Albany slip glaze, so that glazing is very specific. The handle's broken off, but nobody cares. The museum wanted it, and I was like, well, if I ever give it away, I'll give it to you guys, but it's on my mantelpiece. Oh, yeah, so once in a while I find doll heads. Some reason someone threw out a doll and the whole body rotted away, and you're left with the porcelain head. And a lot of them are embossed. This one has an 18-something date on it. I can't see it without my glasses. So once in a while, I stick these somewhere in the house, and freak people out. They like go into the laundry room or something. We did it at Halloween once, set those up. Yeah, 1891 on the back of that.
Wow.
Blue bottles are a whole nother area. People like blue bottles. This is called ice blue. I have one blue, nice blue medicine here with the top. And if you look at this later, the top is the dose, and it says 1 big heaping teaspoon dose. And then there's numbers, the clock numbers on here, and there's an arrow, and you set it for what time you're supposed to take it next on the bottle.
Oh, how clever.
Cures. Cures are a type of medicine that are like a subcategory. And people like the word cure, and they just collect cures. So those are all different colors of the same bottle. But that's a black glass. It's from the Keene, New Hampshire area. It's paneled. It's like snuff was in it. It's really old stuff. And there's a beautiful emerald green whittled marked medicine. It's right here. All right, so it's like that's a hair tonic, hair renovator. It's in teal or some weird blue. The hair bottles always came in really cool colors. You know what? Oh yeah, this is a good. All right, this is a picture of a bottle that I don't have. I'll tell you why. Do the next slide. Okay, so this guy I know, he drove a bulldozer through a field. He was over near Hancock Shaker Village in New York. He owns on his own property. He's driving a bulldozer as fast as he can to go somewhere, hits a bump in the ground, the whole bulldozer blade dips in the ground and kicks up a bottle. And it was the bottle that was in that picture. Whole, perfect, right? And then he tells me there was pieces all over it. So it was a Shaker hair tonic, which is a really good bottle, but it's where they actually made it. So I went over there. There's the dump. I found like 500 broken ones. Never got a whole one. He got it with a bulldozer. All right, so you know what? Just go through it. You have pepper sauce. Go ahead. There's that ink. Go, go, go. medicine. That's a cocaine bottle.
Oh, I like it.
Although it was for dandruff. Yeah, keep going. There's a snuff bottle that's over here. It's you know, porcelain. That ink, holy water. That's a rare bottle, only one known. October spring water from Lenox, Mass. It was a spring that operated in Lennoxdale for like 3 months or something. Yeah. Okay, this bottle's right here. I dug this in Maine. I was in college, and I didn't really know bottles that well. I knew it was a good bottle. It's a really good bottle. It's like right around 1810. It's got one of those seals on it. It's an incredible bottle. This would be almost priceless, but I dug it perfectly whole. If you look at it, it's all glued together. Why? Because I figured this was a great bottle to keep popcorn kernels in on top of my refrigerator in my dorm room. And one night I heard this smash, and I get up, it had vibrated off and broke. And I glued it all back together, and then later on I found there's some markings on the bottom of this that they can identify. It's like an amazing. So I break all my best bottles like that one there. All right. Yeah, that one, that's right here. This is a historical flask. I'll end with this. This is a historical flask. In the country started celebrating its success. And so around the mid-1800s, like this is a cornucopian urn. It's that bottle right there, and they're really old and really valuable. It's ponnelled. So here's how this broke. My buddy and I are digging, and we both lift up this big rock together. And we lift it up, and that bottle's under it, whole. And we both were like, you know, let go with one hand to get the bottle before the rock fell on it, and we dropped the rock. And so there's one that I actually did since. Have to go out and buy and replace smaller version of a historical flask, like a $250 bottle. All right, that's what it looks like, a hole digging several feet down for bottles. There's a bottle show.
Wow.
So, you know, they do it in the gym or something, and there's just tons of bottles, and they're for sale. They're really fun to go to, and you can find some cheaper ones. I'm just saying, you can also find $5,000 inkwell there. And there's a bottle magazine. I've had a few articles in that, actually. Hey, look, this bottle is sitting right here. Cover of the bottle magazine. I have it. All right, so I think we're good on, yeah, that's bottle shows. Anyway, so what we'll do is stop and put lights on. You're welcome to come up and look at bottles and ask me questions. I'm fine with you picking the bottles up. I know you'll be nervous. I just broke a good one myself, so that's over with. You're welcome to pick them up. Accidents happen. I got thousands of bottles. So. But, you know, there's some good ones in here, so don't throw them or anything. But, if you brought a bottle. So I'd love it if you keep the bottle. I'd love it if you took some more over there out of that bin. And I guess that's it. Thank you.
I know that on Antiques Roadshow, they're always telling people not to refinish furniture, but apparently cleaning up old bottles.
Yeah, you clean an old bottle, you increase its value. Let's consider putting it back into its original condition. It's not considered like immoral to do or anything. You know, you don't have to hide that.